Hey, welcome back, everybody, for Demo Days. I'm Garrett Browne, and I am joined here with Simon from SolCyber. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm great, Garrett. How are you, sir?
I'm doing. I'm here in Nashville. The weather has actually gone down. I felt like it was like mid 70s, so I was a little surprised.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
I'm happy about that. So, where are you coming in from?
So I'm calling in from San Francisco, where it is. Right now it's 55 degrees and there's a little bit of fog. Still trying to pull back.
Oh, you guys have like perfect weather all the time, and oh,
Yeah, it's
I,
debatable. Some people are like, "Is this truly summer or not?" Right? So if it's 55,
I
um, but I have a lot of friends and family, who live kind of under the heat dome, so I can relate to that, and I grew up in it. So, but we're a good 30 or 40 degrees cooler in the Bay Area right now.
Nice. Well, so as everybody who is watching, as if you've joined before, Demo Days is basically where I am presenting a demo. I ask questions, especially from my background as a former MSP at MSP for over 10 years. Also had a managed security firm as well. So it's sort of an off-the-cuff casual demonstration. For those of you who are watching on LinkedIn, YouTube, uh, feel free to comment because those comments will stream here and I will see them. If you want to ask a question to Simon, feel free. If not, no worries. You can always look at the stream after the fact. It'll be on there, and you can ask him a question too and reach out to him. Um, so Simon, you guys, Soul Cyber, you're basically managed security, but what you're doing it in a way you're delivering it with. Um, I've been looking at your site, and I got to say I like it because the way you guys have we're going to simplify the cybersecurity journey. And I like that because as you guys have it on here, if you guys check it out, it's soulcyber.com. Um, you're basically outlining the key stages. You're outlining the fact that hey, you can be different sizes. Everybody has different needs. So
Mhm.
I'm interested in this because it's not really one size fits all, but it's kind of like we're going to work this. So um, I'm interested to see what you guys are doing. So can you tell me more about Soul Cyber?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think the website's doing its job. I think you've got the right kind of message here in terms of what we're trying to accomplish. Maybe before I dive into kind of who we are, what we do, maybe start with the who, uh, and maybe just give you a little bit of introduction to who we are as a team, and give you a sense of where we come from. As I mentioned, I'm out in the West Coast. I've been here roughly 25 years after moving here from the Midwest. And for the bulk of that time, the bulk of 25 years, it's been all in cybersecurity. And for me, that's kind of typically been early stage, growth stage companies till we hit some sort of inflection point. I bring that up as part of my history because roughly halfway through that journey is where I met both the CEO, Scott, and Charles, our product leader, at a company called FireEye Mandiant, where we actually built out the managed security services portfolio around FireEye technology. How do you go to co-deliver Mandiant services around incident response, you name it. But more importantly, from Scott and Charles's perspective, before FireEye Mandiant, they were actually responsible for building out the industry's first version of what it meant to be a managed security service provider, right? So this is now like the early 2000s when Scott and Charles were at a company called Riptech, which ultimately got acquired by Symantec. Um, and they were busy building out SOC operations in places like Chennai, India, Tokyo, Japan, Sydney, Australia. Scott ended up running the global business out of Washington, D.C. for quite some time now. Um, so Riptech into Symantec, and then ultimately Accenture came along and acquired Symantec's global MSSP business. So as we know it today, Scott and Charles were responsible for building out Accenture's global MSSP platform. We like to say all of that in the quick preamble in history because, as we know, as you folks go out there and try to build your nav stack. As customers try to rationalize the market on their own, they recognize this, right? This is the problem statement, right? A super crowded cybersecurity market really fails to deliver on what folks are looking for. It that we believe, right? When we got back together in 2020, we said, "Gosh, looking back, 20 some years, what are some of these lessons learned?"
Is it okay? I'm sharing this because you were talking about that. I forgot to.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Just let me know to pull something in and out. All you. All right.
Okay. Yeah. For us, this was the kind of the problem statement that we anchored on was this idea that it's a super hyper fragmented, crowded market, right? You get the idea. 7,000 security companies out there, way beyond the existing demand. So whether you're a customer, you're an MSP trying to kind of rationalize what is the best thing that I can bring to my customer, and what are they ultimately looking for? We recognize, back in 2020, the idea that they're really looking for an outcome. They don't need to, look at every specific company, product, technology. They actually just want an outcome. So how do we anchor on that is something that we thought about, almost 5 years ago. All these other things that I think we all recognize, right? Tooling alone won't stop the bad thing from happening. Gosh, you can check your news feed almost every other day and notice someone else has been breached. Um, that's the macro problem statement we started with. But then we thought about, like, gosh, if we're going to deliver something that's focused on the outcome, that's really focused on managed security services or MDR, then what are the challenges with the existing solutions today that we think we can do something unique? And these are basically them. And we have this conversation with both partners as well as customers all the time. And Scott and Charles will tell you that almost every MSSP offering out there, of which, again, there are thousands of these providers out there, are ultimately delivering the same level of service that they built 20 years ago, which was essentially predicated on this arm's length relationship with the client. So they basically said, "Hey, Garrett, as the customer, I need you to read the Magic Quadrants and Forrester Waves for all the security controls. I need you, maybe it's a good idea for you to come to San Francisco and go to RSA, then you can meet all these vendors yourself. But I need you to kind of do the due diligence on your own on the technology stack and do the shopping." Real challenge there. And the only other thing that the MSSP would do back then is essentially be that extra eyes and ears, right? The SIM in the cloud. I'll ingest everything that you purchased. And when I notice an alert, what I'll do is basically package that up and say, "Hey, Garrett, we saw this alert. We're not quite sure what it is, but we're going to hand it back to you. And this is, now on you to kind of go remediate and take care of." So the key word here is it's basically alert fatigue is what we hear from both customers and partners. So there's a couple other bullet points here that we can get into, but that seems to be the number one issue. MDR, right? Kind of a similar challenge here in the sense that there's some things that are marketed as features, things like automation, but we recognize that most of the partners and customers that come back to us say, "Well, we're basically just automating this alert machine." Seems to be the real challenge there. And a lot of them tend to be a little bit myopic, meaning that they tend to be managed endpoint detection and response focused, meaning they don't get the full scope and visibility across the entire environment. So again, lacking on the outcome. So now the question becomes, great, what did SolCyber build that is so different and so unique and differentiated that delivers upon this outcome? And we came up with this concept in 2020 called foundational coverage. And it's exactly what this tagline says. It's a comprehensive security program. You get the idea that we're anchored on kind of a common framework and language here in the NIST cybersecurity framework. And then we started asking ourselves, what are the capabilities that help a customer and a partner get to the outcome? And to us, that's in a position of resilience. Table stakes is malware detection and response. You've got to protect the endpoint from bad things. To us, that's baseline. Again, table stakes, but it goes above and beyond for us, meaning that we recognize that the majority of these attacks happen with things that don't involve any malware, right? In essence, these are basically weaponized use of compromised credentials. So this can be anything from phishing, targeted business email compromise. We think about, the big name breach last year, right? Was MGM Caesars in Las Vegas. Threat actor going on to LinkedIn, finding an employee's profile, weaponizing that, meaning they called into the IT help desk and got a password reset motion going, right? So they weaponized someone's user credentials in one way or the other, and they social engineered their way into an environment. So the punchline here is that the threat actors are not hacking into the environment, they're logging into the environment. So how do we protect an organization from that type of threat is something we think about all the time. And then on top of those two items is basically how do we help partners help their organization and their customers get better over time? And to us, that simply means how do we help you harden people and harden systems? The first value that we'll deliver to any partner, any customer out there is we'll save them the trouble of having to do the due diligence in the shopping around the technology stack. We'll take care of that. We'll be that layer between them and the 7,000 vendors out there, right? So think about how you craft your Nava stack. We'll take care of all that because again, we're focused on delivering a capability that gets you to an outcome. Suffice to say, all of these security controls check kind of this enterprise class box, right? Is this something that a Fortune 1000 organization would use? So we check that box. That's the first value. The second value, again, is kind of based on this premise of, hey, the tooling alone won't stop the bad thing from happening. You actually have to hang all of this together in a very rigorous security operations center with human analysts, with eyes on glass, hands on keyboard, standing at the ready and prepared to do something if something goes bump in the night, right? And that's what we bring to bear. Now, to that challenge around alert fatigue and, again, this question around delivering upon the outcome in a security operations center, this is where we actually take a little bit different approach than the rest of the market. When we think about how we protect and how we do detect and respond to an incident, we actually believe that we need to take any step in our ability, right, and within the defined ROE, rules of engagement with a partner and a customer to protect that organization. So anecdotally speaking, that can mean, hey, if I see something potentially malicious happening on an endpoint, how do I prevent that lateral spread? And that can mean, hey, quarantine this process, quarantine this machine, or quarantine a user, right? In essence, what we tell our partners and customers is we'll take any step necessary to protect the organization right up until the point where they believe they need to pick up the phone and call their general counsel, their insurance carrier, and the CEO because it's a full-blown breach, right? To us, that absolutely delivers upon the outcome. Last point here, the third value, and then I'm happy to kind of pause here, Garrett, for maybe some questions and some back and forth, is the idea of, again, you look at everything that's happening on this slide between the technology controls, you think about the security operations center, right? There's human analysts in there. We're delivering 24/7 coverage, right? To us, that's roughly 6 to 7 FTEs that are required to go do that in a really highly effective manner. Partners can absolutely try to go build this on their own. It takes a lot of resource. It takes a lot of effort. You can see a lot of contract management that's required here. Essentially, what we've done to help simplify that is taken everything on the slide, right? This is all the licensing included. This is all the personnel within the security operations center. This is this idea that we're actually going to stand everything up, right? So that the transformation and deployment. And then we're going to distill all of this into a single SKU, right? And that to us, that's metered by the number of users. And we have some other variations of this that are based off the endpoint count. So in quick summary here, right? So, these are the three values of foundational coverage, right? That we believe is super compelling and gets partners and customers to the outcome. One, we're bringing a full technology stack to bear and capabilities, right? So save you the trouble of having to go through every component in your Nava stack and select that. Two, we're bringing kind of the people and process within the security operations center to monitor those tooling and do effective detection and response and triage. And then three, we're making this super, super easy to consume, right? Turn this into a simple SKU. eliminate the 10 or 12 different contracts and only manage one with us. Maybe a couple other quick bullet points, Garrett, and I'll pause here. Is the second and third bullet point. When you look at the technology stack here on this slide, we like to think of this as kind of the minimum effective dose of resilience that would fit any organization of any size. We also like to say we want full visibility and telemetry, and we want our SOC to be in that position to respond to anything. So if there are existing security controls within the MSP or the customer's environment, say, hey, I've got Palo Alto firewalls, I've got Fortinet firewalls, I've got Meraki, I've got an IDP or an identity access management platform that I want to pull in here, or an NFA tool. These are all things that we can absolutely want to ingest and monitor on behalf of the customer. So to make sure that we've got that full visibility and telemetry across the environment. So that's foundational coverage. Maybe a quick pause here, Garrett. I'm happy to, take a question or two, pull this one, thread one way or the other.
Yeah. So I had a couple of questions. I'm kind of thinking about, when I was looking at the journey. So when I look at this and from that perspective of a journey, like you said, if I'm in a more established MSP, I have some of these. You guys are obviously, you can kind of mix and match, put it together. I'm gonna assume the licensing will definitely change, with the cost per user per month. What as somebody who's been at, say I've been at for several years and I've got 5,000 endpoints. Let's just say I'm going to use I don't know, say CrowdStrike for example. What if I'm like, man, you guys get a better deal for CrowdStrike than we would? My margins go up. You're going to help me manage it. Can that work? Can that switch over work, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so commercially, you're going down the exact right path, right? So you get the idea that we're buying, a lot of these licenses in bulk, and think about it just as a wholesale retail model. So the commercial leverage is there. You touched upon a point that I actually want to double back on and make it super, super clear. Foundational coverage and what you're seeing on this slide is designed to be one of two things that's really positioned as kind of the best of both worlds. One, it's one thing to say, hey, this thing is a drop-in turnkey security program. If you've got a client that, or if you're going through that kind of Navistack process to build out your capability, this is something that can get you from 0 to 100 like that. The other aspect of this, the other side of that coin, is this idea that you can absolutely bring in and back out technologies as needed, right? So when we say back out, we have a lot of partners or folks that say, gosh, I really love my Mimecast. I really love my Proofpoint Seg when it comes to email protection. We say, fine, bring that into the stack. We can support that all day long. Hey, I really, I've got a know before contract and it's not up until mid-year 2025. Can you support me? Absolutely, right? So it really is designed to be both turnkey, drop-in, comprehensive, but at the same time, super flexible and dynamic in the sense that you can bring your own tooling and capabilities in here. What a lot of partners and customers like to do when they're in that kind of dynamic, and they start to rationalize this, and like, gosh, I've got a know before contract that's coming up next year. And by the way, I'm allocating maybe one person out of my 3 or 4 person team to really administer all those phishing simulations for all of my customers. Mm-hmm. Can I hand that off to someone like SolCyber and now deploy that resource in a more, strategic, meaningful way, right? That's one way where partners and customers are thinking about, gosh, this is a way to kind of offload, again, minimum effective dose, what we think about the basics to be in a position of resilience. And now I can take that component of people and processes that maybe I was doing that within my MSP business. Maybe I can now go focus on something else.
Okay. Yeah, I like that, because that was the other sort of, kind of journey thing where if I'm beginning MSP, I'm starting up something, and all that. Uh, I could essentially just come to you guys and say, I need you guys. I need all this. Um, and so, Does this mean that you'll configure? Everything will be configured for me. So, because yeah, like you said,
Great
I can
question.
do this, but it'll take a lot of time and maintenance on top of that. So, okay, that's cool.
Great.
I like that.
Yeah, no. So let's stay on that for a minute because I want to be super clear here, right? When we say comprehensive, when we say turnkey drop in, we absolutely mean that. When we say, hey, we're gonna drop this in, we're gonna deploy it, right? There's no additional surcharge here. That I think that's an opportunity for the MSP to think about how they can go commercialize that. We're absolutely going to help with the policy configuration setup, all of that, right? All the way up until what we call either maintenance or steady state. Now the customer is in this locked in position, and now we're just eyes on glass, hands on keyboard within the SOC to manage it, right? It's a great point, but absolutely, when we say turnkey, again, when you think
Yeah.
about this outcome, right? Partners and customers want the full outcome. It's not like, hey, here's your tool, right? Just to simplify this, hey, here's your EDR tool, and you're safe, right? There's definitely a lot of effort around deployment, configuration, policy setup, all that stuff, and then manage this stuff on a day-to-day basis.
What well, two things. And we can talk about it later, but I'm seeing the compliance rating. It's 1 year log retention. That's 1 year with everything here. Is the cost included that log retention, or is that an additional cost?
Again, all inclusive, right? So we're not
Okay.
trying to kind of make this super complicated. I will say the only other SKU, you'll see this SKU metered along the number of users and number of endpoints. I'll show you in a minute our MBR solution. And the only thing that we will calculate is just a log ingestion component. So if we're pulling in things like
Yeah.
your firewall logs, your IDP logs, your MFA logs, maybe you've got cloud workloads, maybe your Wiz, you name it. That's the only other SKU out there that's a variable.
Okay. So one last one. Let's go move on for this because again, from the journey perspective, I'm starting off pricing wise. Would my would I be looking at, because you guys are basically leveraging, your reach and your wholesaler for what you're able to do with this, the licensing. Would I have the same? Does the licensing change as I grow and I hit 200 endpoints, 1,000 endpoints, or is it all the same? Or because I know it sounds like two different layers happening there. So
Yeah, absolutely. So we recognize it's especially after look at the past 4.5 years. There's definitely been some macro waves around how organizations either are downsizing and or upsizing, and depending on what industry and
mhm.
what market you're in. The pricing model and commercial model is designed to be flexible and elastic. So we typically do check-ins either on a quarterly basis around right sizing it, right? But
Okay.
to your point, absolutely dynamic and flexible pricing.
Okay, it's cool. I like this. I'm just because the fact you guys doing all this, you're doing that. I mean, as somebody who I've spent hours, I'm a night owl. I know exactly when I look at this and somebody's like, "Hey, we need this set up." I'm like, "Well, this is going to take a minute."
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I like the
I'm
value
guessing.
here. Yeah.
I'm guessing that you've lived this, right? Trying to kind of construct and build this for a customer. Um, right? You can appreciate the idea that this is not an insignificant effort. It takes a lot of time, energy, and resource. A lot of people, right? If you're truly, and this is the other aspect, that when we engage MSP partners, it's like they recognize this because one, their customers are aware of the issue, right? Meaning,
Hmm.
hey, I'm seeing a lot of my peers, whether healthcare, manufacturing, logistics, you name it. I'm seeing a lot of my peers in the news going through data breaches. I'm concerned about it. They're looking at their internal IT teams and they're looking at the MSP to say, "Gosh, can you help me?" My guess is a lot of the MSPs that we work with early on when we first engage them, they're doing maybe one or two or three different aspects of this, but they recognize that this is not an insignificant effort, right? Um, and when that thing happens, you definitely want to be in a position to say, "Hey, I've done everything possible to protect the organization," right?
Yeah.
And they see this as an opportunity to de-risk themselves within that kind of scenario. Like, hey, this is I can hand I'll continue to manage the IT infrastructure for all of my clients, but when it comes to this cybersecurity thing and the risk that comes with it, this is kind of an easy drop-in solution to say, hey, I can check that box as well.
Hmm. Cool. All right. I like it. Cool. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if there are any other questions on this. So this is what we pushed out again, 2020. We've been at this for quite some time now. You get the idea that a differentiated SOC model, super easy consumption model. About a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we started to have customers come to us and say, "Hey, we love what you're doing for us on the commercial side of the business. But I also have a fair amount of my business that supports the Department of Defense. And if you're familiar with CMMC, right, there's a framework out there that is very imminent in terms of being enforced by the government to say, hey, if you are in this supply chain with the Department of Defense and the federal government, then we need you to conform to this framework to ensure that you've checked all these
Mm.
boxes around protecting this supply chain. So supply chain in and of itself, big theme with regard to cyber threats, specific to folks in the private sector, organizations who are within that supply chain. They need to be CMMC compliant. Basically, what you see on slide is essentially we've taken foundational coverage, the commercial model, and we've basically made it CMMC ready for folks that serve. If you're an MSP that serves customers that are specifically within this requirement, then same concepts here, right? What is it? An easy outcome, a drop-in program that I can deliver to my customer that helps them get within CMMC certified. You'll notice, some of the tooling is a little bit, different. Some of the logos are different. I think we all recognize why, right? The tooling itself has to be FedRAMP certified.
Mhm.
The other aspect that is, gosh, what's different from this model to the commercial model is the idea that we can all appreciate the idea that having to go through the certification and attestation process, not an insignificant effort, right? You're going through basically auditors, and it's a very heavy lift to go through that process. A lot of customers don't have that type of resource, right? Some folks say, gosh, I'm going to hire one person and that compliance manager is going to help me navigate this. So this is where, when we think about not just the technology, but the people and process, this is where we're delivering that added value. Right? So we have a resource within SolCyber that will help that partner and deliver to their customer the ability to go through that process. And to us, that means, hey, here's the documentation, here's the attestation. Some of these require screenshots around current status, around posture and whatnot. We're going to add that in terms of an additional resource for that compliance effort. Of course, within the Security Operations Center, when we think about the analysts themselves, they're all USIs, right? USI only. So again, to us, there's a significant amount of opportunity out there. I think when we quantified it, if you looked at some of the numbers out there, on the high side, folks are saying well over 200,000 organizations that will be impacted by this. We believe that with this solution, we can go sufficiently serve 50 to 60,000 of them. Again, turnkey, drop-in, comprehensive, and easy for an MSP to go deliver.
This is cool. Yeah, hey, I talk to MSPs all the time who I've said, hey, we need to look for CMMC,
Yeah.
readiness and certified, and because a lot of these guys will support whatever government entities, and So it's really interesting to see that you guys have put something together. I mean, this is sort of a um, definitely like kind of plug and play. Definitely beyond reasonable effort to make sure you are ready for that. So it's cool. I see you have Splunk on there. You've had some experience with Splunk. Would that be was that cloud version, or does it require like a on-prem hardware box for Splunk, or
I don't think it requires any hardware, but I think that's, again, we recognize that some of these customers have unique requirements when it comes to where where the environment resides, right?
right.
So again, it's designed to be as turnkey drop in as possible, with some idea that there's going to be an ability to flex accordingly, right?
I like it. This is great. Um, yeah, because I I talk to MSPs all the time who are always like asking about this. So this is interesting. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Again, right? Not designed for, we think about like the big 10 primes, not really designed, to go serve that market segment, but we recognize that, in that supply chain for a specific contract or system, it's hey, we've had conversations with MSPs who have clients who have, 100 people in their organization, and they're part of that supply chain, and they're a small manufacturing shop, right? But they manufacturing something very unique and very specific for a specific contract, really
Yeah.
designed for those folks.
Nice. All right. And obviously the price per user is definitely different, than the foundational for the non CMNC edition. So um,
Great point to call out, and the short answer is yes. I think if for any folks and any MSP partners that have worked in this environment, they recognize that the software licensing and tooling itself, there's a significant uplift
oh
for a
yeah,
FedRAMP
yeah,
certified tool, right? I think we all recognize that.
I like it. This makes me feel good, Ron. Seriously, I
Well,
always have a response when I see a good solution. I just sort of have this like little laugh because I'm like, all right, I like it. Because it's just like, oh, there's a lot I can see is lifted from my plate in terms of, the effort that I need to put into configuring and everything. And because this is more than just configuring, this is sort of addressing like the compliance and making sure that, hey, y'all, the boxes are checked if you want to do business with this person, because
bingo.
that person, they know what they need, but most SMBs, they don't. They rely on you. So, but this is sort of the other way around. So I like this. This is cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. The compliance thing is the real driver here. And again, it's if you're that small manufacturer that's making a specific widget um, within this supply chain, it's you know it, for them to think about like, gosh, now I need to hire a compliance manager. Now I need to think about how do I check this box. It's almost too much. Um, so it's really designed to help those folks out. Um, So just starting out, right? Again, 18 months ago, we're serving, more than a handful of organizations and customers today with this type of solution.
Just kind of thinking about this, like, Tom, what, how many security analysts are you guys staffed with? Because there's, there's a lot to unpack, but not because it's plug and play. I guess depends on your perspective, but just out of curiosity.
Yeah. So worldwide, we've got, just south of 50 employees worldwide. We've got security operation analysts here in the US. Obviously, when we think about this particular solution
Yeah.
anchored here in the US, but we also have a security operations center turned up in Manila as well. So it really is 24 by 7 global coverage.
Nice. Okay. Um,
Excellent. Um, so maybe just a quick review here, right? So I think folks get the idea that we wanted to bring to market that a solution that was differentiated in the idea that was going to deliver upon an outcome. So do away with things like alert fatigue, do away with solutions that don't really provide full visibility, full coverage, and then deliver a security operations center service that's actually truly differentiated in the way it does triage and detect and respond, right? Meaning, hey, we're here to protect the organization from an actual breach, and then simplify the consumption model for the partners and the customers. We can pull that thread in a minute here, and then do that for the commercial market, but also do that for folks that are in the private sector, but serving prime contractors who serve the Department of Defense, meaning they're part of the supply chain. The other thing that we've learned over the past 4.5, almost 5 years, is this idea that some folks aren't ready, more on the commercial side, to go flip a switch and turn on foundational coverage. They appreciate the idea that it's super robust, it's comprehensive, but they're looking for something more akin to an MDR solution. And we can check that box as well, right? We believe that our MDR solution, we call MDR++, is somewhat differentiated as well. And I'll just kind of walk through kind of the basics here. But but the best way to think about this solution is basically our MDR is a subset of foundational coverage, meaning you're still going to get the world-class EDR component. We're going to manage that, right? Whether it's CrowdStrike or SentinelOne. The key point here is when you roll up to the right and you look at kind of 1 o'clock, you look at this idea that the SIEM's going to be part of it, but we're absolutely going to provide visibility beyond the endpoint, right? So that idea that we want to ingest everything within the environment, your firewalls, everything else, absolutely something that is part of this solution. So it's not just MEDR focused. And to that point that, again, hey, we want to help the staff get better, hard people, hard systems, is this idea that our security operations center actually delivers live training every month to all of our customers. And again, you get this idea that, again, we have human analysts that are doing effective response within the security operations center. So again, we've got kind of a stepping stone to get to foundational coverage. Most partners and customers think about this as a way to slowly design a roadmap, whether it be 12, 18, 24 months, with this idea that foundational coverage is kind of that end state. But if there's one dynamic within the customer or partner's environment, then they can choose to take this as kind of that stepping stone.
So the response, so that's something I'm familiar with. So if we get like a drive-by, somebody's trying to inject something, drop something, payload, whatever. And it's just something automated. It's not really targeted. It's just like, hey, we're going to see if you have whatever path open or your environment file, whatever. Is this something where it's like you will get in touch with me and then I will let you know how to interact? Or it's like, hey, we've set these rules up. This is where we'll get in touch with you, or, so here we go. You're already showing. Okay. All right.
Great question. Great segue. And this is, kind of highlights this idea where we believe that, hey, we want to deliver upon the outcome. In that vein, we want to, again, protect the organization from breaches. At the same time, we don't want to be that alert fatigue machine, right? So to us, that means, hey, can we actually close out some of these alerts and mute that noise on behalf of the customer and on behalf of the partner? You get this kind of in the upper left-hand corner here. 98% of detected incidents are resolved without customer and or partner involvement as need be, right? Giving you an anecdote, we turned up a logistics firm in the upper Northeast earlier this year, and they were coming off one of these endpoint-centric EDR solutions, MEDR solutions, and went through an event, moved over to our solution, and within 30 to 45 days, right, of the service, we get I get an email, personal email saying, hey, it seems super quiet. We haven't heard too much from you folks. Can you give us a readout in terms of what you folks have done over the past 30 or 45 days? So I checked in with the SOC and said, hey, can we get a readout? of what's happened over the past 30 or 45 days. And the readout was basically this: hey, 10 incidents or 10 alerts have gone off within the environment within 30 days. 8 of those alerts we just took care of, right? We didn't need to bother the partner. We didn't need to bother the customer. We said, hey, these are things that are, when we triaged them, didn't seem significant. So we just took care of it and closed it out. The 2 that were of note absolutely rolled it up to the partner, to the customer, you know, and those got closed out as well. So to us, that's absolutely part of the outcome, in the sense of, hey, we're going to take care of it. We're going to deliver on the outcome and triage these alerts and incidents, but we're going to do it in a way where we don't need to be part of this alert fatigue machine, right? And we'll take care of it on behalf of the partner and the customer side.
That's cool. Yeah, that when I was in MSP, that happened all the time to me. Customers were like, hey, we haven't really heard from you guys much in the past several months. And it's that thing of like, well, you could look at it as if we're doing a good job for you. We're doing a lot. But what are you doing? And this is when I first started, and I was like, oh, okay, you know what? We need to put something together to kind of, it was something similar, but yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
it is a thing.
I mean, so always a challenge in security, right? You're like, gosh, if you're doing your job, all's quiet, right? That's a good thing. But then, to your point, it's like, if you're the end customer, then you're like, gosh, it's super quiet. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So it is a unique dynamic. I will say, and I'm just going to get out of presentation mode, is we absolutely want to make sure that the partners have kind of that everyday visibility into the environment. So they're absolutely going to have a good understanding of the posture, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see some of the anecdotes here. Hey, do I have 100% of endpoints deployed? What are the 10% that are missing? Talk to me about the last phishing simulation score. So there's definitely kind of this single pane of glass in terms of the health of the environment. I will say, in terms of kind of this anecdote that we've been talking through, there's absolutely kind of a governance model here that says, hey, with our partners, with our customers, at minimum every 90 days, we're going to have a thoughtful conversation of, hey, what happened, right? If it was
Mm-hmm.
super quiet, then walk me through that, right? Not the 30 or 45 day anecdote, but talk me through the last quarter. And it's a good, pause and have a thoughtful conversation on what's happening within a partner's customer's environment, and ask ourselves, hey, are we doing the right things, or are there things we can do better? So there's absolutely, hey, a single pane of glass for give me a day-to-day operational view, but also kind of a step back in terms of the governance model. Let's say, hey, let's take a step back to say, how's foundational coverage doing with this particular customer, and how do we continue to get better? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Is this live customer QBR is live? Does this mean they can log in anytime they want and look, or is this whenever you're ready for the QBR to say, hey, here it is?
Yeah. So this is the quarterly business review that our customer success team will drive with the partner and the customer. There is a dashboard within a particular customer's environment that they can go peer into, right? So they have a kind of a current sense of state of the environment, right? So more immediate view than anything else.
I like this. This is good. It's very appealing. Do you mind zoom kind of?
Yeah, let me just put it back in slide mode, but absolutely.
Oh, there we go. I like that. Yeah, this is exactly the kind of thing I wish I had show my customers. Right? As opposed to cut and copy, paste everything into a Word doc.
Yeah. I will tell you, it's like when we think about anecdotes from partners and customers, it's sometimes when they think about, hey, it's our president or CEO or the board's asking for kind of a readout, they'll take a screenshot of, hey, show me the state of the environment today, and then show me the readout from the quarterly business review. And it's a good, hey, 1-2 slides to say, hey, here's where you're at as of today, by the way, and here's anything and everything that's happened over the past quarter. So it's a good, right? Again, there's some rigor here. and some process here, not just on the day-to-day operational piece, but we're thinking about how do we go help that partner give out a report card to their customer to say, hey, here's where we're at.
This is cool. I like it.
Yeah,
so it's really good.
Yeah. Gosh, even on that point, I mean, we can land on here. I'm happy to take on any other, specific questions, anecdotes, you name it. But again, you get a fair sense of who we are, meaning, hey, you've got some folks that have been in the industry for quite some time now, multiple decades. You have folks that have been specifically crafting managed security service solutions for quite some time now. Everyone's like, great. What is that? What's that really manifested itself into? I don't know if folks here follow NPS scores, but it's basically just a mechanism and a metric in terms of getting a sense of how are your customers experiencing your solution. For MSSPs, for folks in this category, that's typically the average has typically been sub 30, right? It's really hard to do this business, and it's a challenge, right? You're always being challenged for a number of reasons. We see peers. I was at RSA, so I live in San Francisco. I'm a 10-minute walk to the convention center where we host RSA every year. I saw some of very mature, large MSSPs touting the idea that they had, hey, we've got a 75 NPS score, or we have an 80 NPS score. So close to 5 years in, we have a 90 plus NPS score with our customers today. So we think we're doing something right. Our customers validate that. Our partners validate that. Again, when we think about how we go help partners, it's an opportunity. Again, just purely from the effort that's required here. It's a turnkey drop-in solution for your Navistack. That's the best way to think about it. It's a great opportunity to go in front of your customers and say, I can deliver something that's outcome-based and checks all the boxes, and I can simplify how they do that commercially as well.
So kind of think about this, the dashboard, all that. Is this white labeled where if I want to, my customers, when I go to, is just see my logo, or you're shaking your head. Yeah. So, yeah. Right.
So I would say we're closer to gray label than white label. So I would say if folks on this call or who are viewing this are interested in that, definitely reach out and would love to pull that thread. Super partner friendly. We believe that, hey, if you want to maintain that face to the customer, then we'll have that conversation. I would say, just when we think about it operationally, more gray label than white label at this point.
That's thinking about compliance here and cyber insurance, things like that. Do you guys work with any sort of cyber insurance or anything to help with that?
Great question. And great segue. So we were early on to go engage insurance carriers in terms of what we build. The best way to think about this is I like to use the analogy of auto insurance for a good 10, 15 plus years. The practice has always been, you use a specific tool, I'll give you some points off of your premium. You use this EDR tool, you're using MFA, right? And I'll liken that to, you have anti-lock brakes, you have collision detection, you name it. We've kind of taken the reverse approach, right? We went to them and said, hey, we actually went to the trouble and built the entire car, right? And it's a super safe car, by the way, right? So if that's a Volvo to you or whatever 5-star rated car, we've built that. We've had 2 carriers come back and say, yes, you actually have built the equivalent of a safe car here in terms of foundational coverage. Therefore, any customer that's driving that car will go reward them. I won't go through all the bullet points here, but obviously the big pain points today are, customers are seeing premiums double, I've heard triple, without any incidents, just due to the nature of the environment. But I've seen customers who've been quoted with this engagement post-event, get up to 40% off in terms of premium discounts. So if this
Mhm.
is a topic of conversations with your customers, if this is a pain, then we can definitely help them.
Did you say post event? You've seen that happen?
Post-event, post-event, right? So
Wow.
post-event, right? Again, think about this. Bad thing happened. All the things that happen, right? The IR firm comes in, they do the forensic investigation, the restoration and recovery and mediation teams come in, they do that, they're doing that. But then the customer's obviously thinking about like, gosh, how do I
Yeah.
make sure this thing doesn't happen again? Um, we're again kind of the simplicity of that drop-in program to say, hey, I just turned this thing up. Uh, the insurance carriers are like, great. Right? It's kind of like, again, using that same analogy. Hey, I had a wreck and, maybe I wasn't driving the safest car, but now I'm driving a Volvo, right? I'm driving this
Mm.
foundational coverage. You'll get a discount, right?
So is this included in the foundational, or is this something I need to add on? Because I know some
Great
people are
question.
going to have your own. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, super
Because
great question. Yeah, to get very, very specific. We're not a broker. We're not an MGA, right?
yeah.
We're focused on this operational component and how do we help organizations just get in a position of resilience. We recognize that hey, this is comprehensive for that operational perspective, but we also want to help de-risk the business itself. So when we think about right that CFO or whoever the buyer is of insurance, then we want to provide them a vehicle to check this box as well. But we work with
Mhm.
partners that can go deliver this. Again, we're not the broker, we're not the MGA.
Gotcha. Okay. This is cool. I wasn't expecting this, for the cyber insurance. I was more of like, hey, we work with these guys, but this is nice. What if um, what if I have an existing, company that do you guys and then I use you guys? Do y'all and they're like, hey, we need to go ahead and check. Would you work with us to make sure that any requests they have for compliance, things like that, or how does that work? Or
So
would you
when you
say,
say
hey, here's our
existing
stuff?
company, you mean existing MSSP or existing technology company or existing insurance company?
Yeah, an existing, I'm sorry, an existing insurance company. So if I already have an insurance company and they're like, hey, tell us more about your cybersecurity stack. How
Yeah.
are you providing this? Like, is that, then can I, how's that work? Can I call you guys and be like, hey, our company wants to, check off boxes or anything like that? Is that something you guys can help with?
Yeah, great question. I mean, we understand that partners and specifically customers have typically that relationship with the broker. So we typically
Hmm.
say, hey, like we're happy to have that conversation and engage. Again, we'll line them up with our partners on the back end of this cyber insurance program to get a quote so they can, if it's worth it for them to kind of do that apples to apples comparison and get an idea. A lot of folks just like to do it just to make sure that, the rate they have is actually, um, is it good or bad or can it be optimized? Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're always looking, it's like, but also cheaper, lower is not always the best. Yeah. So you get
Exactly.
what you pay for, it's kind of, um, so wait, how long have y'all been around?
2020.
2020. Okay.
So,
Um,
again, almost 5 years.
all right. How many, if you don't mind me asking, how many like enterprises, MSPs, MSSPs, like what are y'all, what's your, what are you guys looking like?
In terms of like commercial growth and momentum.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we've been at this for 4.5 years. We've got roughly just south of 50 logos. That covers almost every industry and segment, right? This is the solution we provide, and I think folks on the call get it. Security is kind of a horizontal challenge for anyone. So I mentioned logistics, manufacturing, healthcare, financial services, software. A lot of startups like this because they recognize that, gosh, it's like I'm out here to kind of create this, next big thing. Why do I need to deploy internal assets to go do this? I will say financial services. That can mean anything from a credit union to private equity firms to venture capital firms. Um, Hospitality. I will say hospitality, another big segment where folks, they think, oh gosh, this is kind of an easy solution for us to take on.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I always ask just because it's always good to know where companies are. I don't think you guys are. Yeah, I think you're doing. This is great, and I love there's the armadillo. I love the
Yeah.
website. Just I like the colors and all this. I mean, I know
Yeah,
it's
it's a
not
funny thing.
service.
It's yeah, for us, it's kind of a nod to the idea that one, we're headquartered out of Dallas, so it's a little bit of a kind of check the box in terms of that. Two, again, a lot of folks on the team have been in the industry for multiple decades, and we said, just purely from the messaging angle, like how do we do something other than the dark motif, the guy in the hoodie in the basement, which seems to be kind of the go-to easy button for marketing. So doing something a little bit different here. But again, hopefully folks appreciate, not just, his name's Amos, by the way, Amos the Armadillo. But hopefully folks appreciate what we've built. And we'd love to engage any partners on how we can go work with them to serve their clients on this front.
Yeah, man. I think this stuff absolutely it's catching my eye. I'm like, oh, okay, this is interesting. I like what you guys are doing. Because the amount of work that goes in this stuff is just, it's a lot. I remember working with a sort of a forked version some years ago. Putting on our own blades and making our own custom rules and around the IPs, the host names. I mean, it was just a lot of work. Fortunately, we had the skill sets to do it, but it was still a lot of work, and it was just like, all right, well, like you said, there's a lot of noise and it's going to take time. And of course, this is also a little bit before AI was even a thing, or even accessible to just anybody. So one last question I do have for you. What is onboarding look like? Is it like time wise? I was thinking about that.
Onboarding. Yeah, we like to say, the short version is we like to say 30 days or less to resilience.
Okay.
We do recognize that there's a lot of moving parts there, whether it's on the partner side or the client side, right? Hey, we need to change control window. Hey, we're kind of in the last few weeks of summer here, but we do recognize, schedules, you name it. But that being said, I think we all can kind of see that the obvious here, which is this is kind of a boilerplate, architecture, what we stand up, right? How we roll things out. It's pretty standard in terms of how we go about doing this. So there isn't a ton of uniqueness in terms of the moving parts. So outside of, managing calendars and change control windows, we can turn customers up in less than 30 days. By the way, it's like, just to give you anecdotes on the other side, we've turned customers up in less than 5 days, right? So, and those are unique scenarios, right? Hey, I'm coming out of the event. I need to get into a resilient posture ASAP, those things. But again, the idea that this is drop in, this is standardized, this is something that snaps in, right? If the appetite's there, we can turn it up really quickly.
Okay. All right. Well, it's good to know. That's what I was kind of thinking. But what I'm going to do is I want to put a stake in it. Because we're at the top of the hour, and thank you everybody who is watching, as well as those of you who watch after we're done. But feel free to comment on LinkedIn, reach out to Simon, go to SolCyber.com, or you can go to channelprogram.com, look up SolCyber. You can see reviews from other MSPs because you can look up reviews anywhere, but these guys are verified. Like, these guys have been in the trenches. Like, they know that this is, so that's why, I would definitely check that out. But any last words, Simon, for everybody out there?
No, I mean, just a big thank you. I know it, Friday, late summer, we really appreciate the opportunity and time for us to come on this show and present. Again, we're in a position that we think we can go help a lot of partners, help a lot of customers. So if there's any interest, feel free to reach out to us and look forward to meeting you. But with that, yeah, have a great weekend.